Hello friends, glad that he's not using the face cam because he just ate a big meal and feels fat here, bringing you another Dota 2 video in which we're going to be talking about the most buffed heroes in 7.24. Number 4, Slardar. Near the end of 7.23, Slardar was already trending to some degree, likely because the hero has been buffed for 11 patches in a row. More recently, in 7.24, they increased his base movement speed from 290 to 300. And subsequently, they rescaled his bash damage to be a little bit less in the early game, but still the same in the late game. This may not seem like a lot, but if we've learned anything from Legion Commander and Lifestealer still being in the meta after 10 goddamned patches, it's that move speed is a stat that should not be underrated. This move speed buff on Slardar is fantastic because it allows him to have mobility without having to have an early Blink Dagger. This means that you can set up his bash and his stun far more easily in the laning stage and during ganks. You can possibly build a couple of items comfortably before needing a blink, and you can stick on top of people bashing them to death because your move speed is very likely going to be faster than theirs. On top of this, Guardian Sprint increases your movement speed by a percentage, which is based off of Slardar's base movement speed. So 10 extra movement speed actually becomes 15 extra movement speed with Guardian Sprint active. Before 7.24, Slardar was given an extra cast range and reduced cast time on his ultimate. His Aghanim Scepter was buffed in terms of the radius on the puddle and the health regen bonus of the puddle. His talents were buffed. His base HP regen was buffed to 0.5 from 0. His move speed was buffed even before this patch, and his strength gain was buffed, so he's a tanky boy. All of this, plus the fact that people are getting way smarter at building Slardar in terms of itemization and skills, building into more typical offlane items such as Vlad's, Pipe, and so forth, and skilling more points in Stun and less points in Guardian Sprint and Bash, makes this hero an exceptional pick, even without these buffs. One final point that I'd like to make about Slardar is that he's a hero that tends to do very well when the meta favors him, but very poorly when it doesn't favor him. He's a little bit extreme in that sense. And currently, Jug and Nakes are big carry picks that are trending. Considering that Slardar is just about the best lane counter to both of these heroes, I think it's pretty safe to say that the upcoming meta is going to favor Slardar greatly. Number 3, Juggernaut. I have to be honest, with this hero, I was pretty hesitant to put it on the list, just because his win rate was so atrocious previous to the late letter patches in 7.23 that I thought that it was pretty unlikely it would be good even with some buffs. But then I did a bit of research, saw that quite a few pros were picking Jug with a large degree of success on the new patch. On top of this, the win rate has increased by 3% since the patch on Dota buff, so clearly the changes have meant something positive for the hero. In 7.24, they increased his base damage by 4, and they gave him 5 extra movement speed. As we've already discussed, the addition of extra movement speed on any hero is something that cannot be overlooked. When Ice Frog gave a bunch of random heroes move speed in 7.21, they all became overpowered, and not just for that patch, for many patches afterward with tons of nerfs. Jug, being a hero that builds move speed items such as drums, Yasha, and phase boots, is naturally a hero who is going to benefit massively from some extra base movement speed. Moreover, a big way that he kills people in the early game is by running at people and sticking on them with Blade Fury, and in the late game he chases people down with a Basher or Abyssal Blade. In both of these cases, extra movement speed is incredibly valuable. In other words, 5 movement speed may not sound like a lot, but it's not just 5 movement speed. It is a 5 move speed advantage on other heroes, which allows you to run them down and kill them instead of them getting away from you. The base damage change, of course, is a nice buff to Jug's overall damage, but where it really helps him is in the laning stage, where it feels like he was previously very punishable. Now he can compete with a lot of these offlaners in terms of simply CSing if a lane is too tough to kill. Keep in mind, Jug has one of the best base attack times and base attack speeds in the game, so despite having atrocious base damage, he was still pretty easy to last hit with before. Now he's got ridiculous BAT and BAS, but he has amazing base damage as well. One of the underrated changes to Jug, and frankly a lot of heroes in 7.24, is that he's a slot-starved carry. Much like a gyrocopter, he likes to build drums, Yasha, stick, and so forth, and fight a lot in the early game. Because of this, a lot of the time, these slot-starved heroes don't really benefit from the neutral items because they don't have the room to use them. But now, with the extra neutral item slot, Jug can actually benefit from the neutral items like a lot of the non-slot starved heroes in Dota that want to build bigger items. 2. Mars. For this hero, I'm going to flat out say it. Mars was already incredible in 7.23 and just tragically underpicked and untested. This hero did not need to be buffed in 7.24. But alas, since he was a forgotten gem of the patch, nobody picked him, and therefore the frog pumped up this roided up evil Captain America looking bastard full of even more steroids. In 7.23, he was given a 40% 1.5 second movement slow attached to God's Rebuke. I said this when SF got buffed and became broken, and I'll say it again. When you take a hero that is balanced around completely lacking some capability in Dota, and you give it that capability, they generally become overpowered. Then, patch after patch, they get nerfed, and they still remain strong. Because in Dota, breadth is arguably more important than depth. Ability to do many jobs generally trumps the ability to do one job extremely well, because there are so many possibilities for what can happen in the game and how you have to react to it. Anyway, now Mars has the ability to slow his enemies and set up for his Spear of Mars, which used to be a skill shot, but nowadays you don't have much of an excuse to miss it because you can set yourself up with the God's Rebuke. On top of this, in 7.24, the God's Rebuke slow was increased from 1.5 to 2 seconds, making it even easier to set up for Spear of Mars. Or you can simply use this ability to get a few extra hits on somebody after your spear. In 7.23, they made Bulwark a toggleable active, where it will lock your facing position, which looks hilarious by the way, and you'll tank 70% of projectiles for your team. This ability is probably one of the most criminally underused broken abilities in Dota currently. I've seen some people stand in front of high ground with this up, and it's like the tower is permanently fortified. It is insanely strong. If that wasn't enough, in 7.23c, Bulwark's early levels were monstrously buffed to almost double the damage block value. This makes it an incredible 1-point wonder, which is extremely convenient because Mars prefers to level his Q and his W because they do damage and they're stuns. Well, one of them's a slow, but you get the point. Finally, he was given more God's Rebuke damage, which is cool because that ability was already great, and then his strength gain was buffed. As if Mars didn't already do enough damage or wasn't tanky enough. So, with all that being said, if you want to gain a lot of MMR right now, hop on the Mars train before anybody else does. I guarantee you that learning this hero will have a hugely positive return on investment in the near future. Number 1. Death Prophet. Death Prophet is almost certainly the happiest hero with the 7.24 changes. She has a staggering 4% win rate increase on Dota buff since 7.24, which is the absolute highest increase on any hero for the patch. And because Death Prophet has been somewhat off meta for some time now, nobody's really sure what the best item build and skill build is on her currently. So that 4% win rate increase will very likely turn into something even more significant in the coming weeks when pros discover what the best build is on her. In 7.24, she was given 1 base armor instead of 0, which may not seem like a lot, but since armor scales logarithmically, the first point is genuinely the most important. Another change is that she was given 5 extra base move speed. Keep in mind, this is on a hero who increases her movement speed by a percentage based on her base movement speed with a skill that has up to 4 charges. Moreover, Death Prophets tend to build high move speed items, such as Boots of Travel, Drums, Yule Scepter, and so forth. Since she is a hero that of course performs best when she's able to get right on top of people because that's where her ultimate does the most damage. The most significant buff to Death Prophet in 7.24, however, is that Spirit Siphon's charge restore time was reduced dramatically in the early levels and by a significant amount in the later levels. Similar to Earth Spirit's issues in 7.23, it never felt like Spirit Siphon was up enough to match the amount of fighting that people were doing in the patch. And any Death Prophet player will tell you that this was especially annoying if you used this ability in the early laning stage and had to suffer through a 60-second restore time. Now it feels like she can use her Spirit Siphon whenever she wants, and she'll still have it ready for fighting, especially at the end of the laning stage. On top of this, Death Prophet was given 3 extra base intelligence in 7.23, so with almost 60 base damage, seemingly unlimited Spirit Siphon charges, and the nerf to other prolific mid-heroes such as TA, Death Prophet feels like one of the strongest viable mid laners in the patch in terms of laning stage dominance, and let's face it, her late game has always been incredible. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support me in the channel, make sure to subscribe, make sure to thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, and maybe leave a comment if you agree or disagree with the heroes that I suggested. In any case, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I hope to see you in another video.